Hello and welcome to Beyond Reproach. This is Tux Lurzel.
And Stephanie Domingo.
We come to you from Bushwick, Brooklyn, where we record on land belonging to the Lenape Nation, a nation that is one of many still very much out here doing its thing, and we would like to acknowledge that. Beyond Reproach is the show about scandals and scandalousness in American politics and government. And today, as usual, we be drinking and we be swearing.
It's true.
It's the truth.
Both of those things are true.
Today we be drinking a fancy little cocktail called the Sea Breeze. You feel that?
Yes. I feel it over my skin.
Salty ocean air.
It's very relaxing.
It's very tropical looking.
Yeah, just it reminds me of just like a watermelon, like
Totally.
the colors.
Yeah.
Or just New England.
Yeah.
What were those ugly like paisley bags that were a thing in college?
Vera Bradley.
There we go.
My little sister had them.
Yeah.
She lived her life.
So expensive, so ugly.
So ugly.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, to see young people with that pattern around was just very confusing because it
Yeah.
seemed very grandma
Yeah,
to me.
totally. It's so grandma.
Yeah.
Total like paisley quilted, ugly colors too.
It made no sense.
Yeah.
It was one thing that I shrugged and I said white people.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I was always like, McKenna's like 10 years younger than me. I'm like, why do you like this?
And it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's why she liked it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's ugly.
I know. It doesn't matter as long as it's trendy and expensive.
Hype.
So today,
But let me get off my high horse. I used to shop at Abercrombie.
luckily at that time, I was a hippie and I loathed Abercrombie. I was clearly spending way too much money on my clothes. It was just, they were like, I was getting them at the hippie store.
Yes. Abercrombie was so ugly. Like just khakis and
Yeah.
like plaid and weird pockets for no reason.
And it was so loud in there.
Oh my God, it was loud. And they like sprayed perfume or
Yeah.
cologne. So you're going in there, you're sneezing, you can't hear anything.
Yeah, I have very...
And I was a teen at the time. I had like good ears,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I was, I guess, hearing too much.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive and always have been very sensitive to smells. So like I could never go into like a Bath and Body Works. I would instantly have a headache.
I am that way now.
Even as a teenager, that was my MO.
I like that we're already off topic.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten on topic yet and we're off topic. So today, Stephanie's story is from the late 1960s, right?
Yes, 1968.
1968.
Yes.
Look at that. So we are drinking a Sea Breeze. A lot of people probably consider this an 80s cocktail, maybe even a 90s cocktail. It was very, very popular in the 80s and 90s, but the Sea Breeze really blew up at the end of the 60s. Do you want to guess why it blew up at the end of the 60s?
JFK died?
It was
in the
about
mid-60s?
marketing.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
those like Mad Men were like really pushing it
Were they? To bars?
to everyone and everywhere. Yeah. So I have mentioned this before on the show when we did our episode about White Russians, and I talked about the history of vodka sales in the U.S. I talked about how vodka's popularity hit a stumbling block in the 1960s because of the Cold War.
Yes.
And the fact that Americans thought vodka was a Russian drink, a Russian libation, if you will.
Yes, the libation.
So Smirnoff threw a fuck ton of money at marketing to
It's
try
like
and...
what Aperol did.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
Like several years ago.
Yes, to try and sort of like rebrand themselves and like get Americans to want to
We're
drink
not
vodka.
evil.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get drunk on us.
Yeah, totally. And like we're not Russian. Like we're so American. Look at us, Smirnoff. We're like,
Your name is Smirnoff.
yeah. But it worked. I
mean, we're very susceptible to
yeah,
marketing.
totally. Throw enough money at anything and people will buy it. So by the end of that decade, gin was out and vodka was taking over as America's clear liquor of choice. One thing really helped to make this campaign work, and that was a push in marketing bureaus to find vodka-based cocktails that were easy to drink and easy to make. So you could not only order them out at bars, but you could make them at home because there's only a couple ingredients.
Aren't all vodka drinks easy to drink except for a martini?
Yeah, but a lot of cocktails before this were like, you know, complicated. Like
okay.
you have to have a lot of stuff and equipment. Whereas this, you literally make it in a glass. You don't need a cocktail shaker. You pour it into the glass.
That's true, yeah.
And you don't even need to stir it up. You just mix it with your straw. That's it. The end.
Okay.
Thanks to Big Vodka's marketing dollars, this whole category of like vodka-based coolers really took off at the end of the 60s. It all started with the Cape Codder.
Yes.
Which,
Iconic.
Yes. And before The Cape Codder used to go by the name of Harpoon. It was called the Harpoon when it was made with gin. But then when vodka took over, they were like, we're going to call it a Cape Codder because it's cranberries. But also, at the same time, the Greyhound got really popular.
Ooh.
Vodka and grapefruit juice. And the Salty Dog, which just adds
What's
a salt.
the Salty Dog?
All it is a Greyhound with a salted rim.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the Seabreeze came along, which is cranberry juice,
Screwdriver,
grapefruit juice, and vodka. Yeah, Screwdrivers got really big. I didn't even bring them up because gross.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of being like
Gross.
14 and
Yes. I think that was my first drink.
totally. That was not like beer.
Yeah.
And then there was the Bay Breeze, which is cranberry juice and pineapple juice and vodka.
Ooh.
Yes.
That sounds delightful.
On its own, just having like these sort of like easy to drink coolers that only have one or two ingredients or two or three ingredients and you can mix them right in the glass. You don't need a shaker. You don't need any equipment. That alone would have probably been enough to make all of these vodka-based drinks instant like American cocktail classics. But as it turned out, vodka wasn't the only beverage in the 60s that needed a rebrand. In 1959, a bunch of cranberries in the Pacific Northwest were found to contain traces of an herbicide called aminotriazole, which was basically a bog weed killer that caused cancer in lab rats. The U.S. Secretary of Health told people not to consume cranberries if they didn't know exactly where they were coming from. And cranberry farmers took a huge hit because of this. Obviously, they phased out aminotriazole. They weren't using it anymore, but like nobody wanted to eat cranberries after this. So there was this little cranberry farmers collective that had been formed in 1930 called the Cranberry Growers Cooperative. Today, we know them as Ocean Spray.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Wow.
So in the 60s...
I love how indie they started.
I know, yeah. The Cranberry
Cooperative.
Growers Cooperative, yeah. So in the 60s, they were really, really putting some money into trying to get people to buy cranberries again, or buy cranberry juice again. So they were publishing all of these like free recipe cards and recipe booklets and newsletters that were filled with all kinds of cranberry recipes and cranberry juice recipes. So at the same time that vodka was pushing for simple, easy to make fruity cocktails, Ocean Spray was also pushing cranberry juice as a great mixer for cocktails.
Okay.
Yes.
With their powers combined.
Exactly. Yes. They are Captain Seabreeze. Yeah, these coolers really
It's
took
called
off.
Synergy. Okay.
Yes, Synergy. Yeah. So by the end of the 60s, these like breeze drinks were like at the top of the top 10 lists for the cocktails of the year every year.
Or they're tasty and they're easy to make. I get it.
Totally.
I get why they're popular.
Yeah. As for the name Seabreeze, no one really knows where the name came from or who invented it or when. 1930s Savoy cocktail book has a recipe for something called a Seabreeze cooler, but it doesn't call for a single ingredient that the Seabreeze we're drinking today does. It called for lemon juice, grenadine, equal parts apricot brandy and gin, and soda water. And it's garnished with mint. It's not in any way even remotely the same drink.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So even the Ocean Spray like archives of all those recipe booklets and stuff that they were putting out, they had a recipe for a cranberry grapefruit and vodka cocktail. It was not called a Seabreeze. I'm kind of guessing it was probably the vodka marketers that put it together because they were trying to push this like breeze idea, and there was the Bay Breeze and, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's probably where it came from, but that is just a guess.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. That's the Seabreeze. You don't even need a bar spoon. All you have to have is a glass and a straw.
Very accessible.
You know what? Before we take a taste,
what?
we have to give a shout out to our latest...
Oh my God. Thank you for remembering.
Yeah, our latest Patreon supporter. $5 and $10 supporters get a shout out during the cocktail segment on the show. So cheers to you, David.
David, one of our listeners who frequently sends us mail and other things, and it's just so lovely.
He's the best. Always has feedback on the new episodes.
It's like paragraphs, just things that came to mind when
so
listening.
Good. I love it.
It's so charming and so lovely, and it always brightens our day. So yeah, thank you, David.
We were so excited when we saw your name in our email for Patreon. Cheers to David.
Cheers, David.
When I was a kid at school learning the golden rule, teacher often used to say, If you don't tell a lie, there's not a reason why you can't be like Washington someday. How could Washington be a married man and never, never tell a lie?
Yeah, it tastes like
fruit juice. It's a little
more tart because of the grapefruit, but
I wanted to do and almost did Greyhound because I love grapefruit juice
same.
But I thought that the whole cranberry story was a little bit more interesting.
I did not know that there's like a cranberry lobby.
Yes.
That was doing cranberry marketing.
Yes.
Alongside the vodka people.
I like that it's like sweet in summary, but it's not too sweet.
No, it's easy breezy.
Yes.
I get why they chose this name.
Yeah.
My scandal's from the South, so that's kind of, I mean, I don't know. This is not a Southern
I feel like cranberries are like a northern thing. But...
Yeah, but I'm thinking of like warm weather.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I've wanted to do a scandal about collective action for a while. Ooh. It's something that we definitely talk about offline when we're talking that spicy socialist happy hour talk.
Yes.
It's just so hard to like choose a union story to talk about.
Yeah.
Because there's so many.
Yeah.
But it's been top of mind since, especially because 2021 was dubbed, I don't know if you're aware of this, the Year of the Worker.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yes.
Oh, pat on the back, we get a year.
And I get what they're trying to say. It's like labor has been like front and center in the national debate.
We're still not getting anywhere.
I feel like the Year of the Worker pushed to the brink by capitalism during a pandemic is more
that's
accurate.
Exactly it. Yeah.
The Year of the Worker. I mean, they were being cute.
I mean, fuck that term, but also like there's a reason that it's happening.
Yes. So many workers who organized last year and are continuing to organize this year for better working conditions were told that they were essential by their employer, by the government, by the media, and yet their lived experience.
It's like nobody's treating them like they're essential at all.
Talk about gaslighting.
Disposable.
Yeah, disposable is the word.
Yeah.
You know, after nearly 2 years of balancing their health and safety on the front lines, a lot of people had a fucking enough.
Yeah.
They're like,
totally.
It's weird living during a pandemic Lovato or pandemic more, I heard recently, which I love.
Pan quotidien.
Oh, yes, pan quotidien. I love that. I get why people are opting out.
Yeah.
Or saying, like, enough is enough. We need to do something radical to change this situation.
Yeah.
Because, like, how am I essential and yet I'm getting a rock as a gift for my service instead of hazard pay? We'll
have to put that on our Instagram or something. Literally, what was it?
Kaiser Permanente. It's like this big nursing.
It's like a hospital sort of chain in California, Southern California.
They gave nurses a rock as a token of their appreciation.
Literally just a rock.
A rock. And they were supposed to, it was like a rock with an assignment. They were supposed to like write things on it.
Write something that like you're grateful for or something about.
Yeah.
I can't remember what exactly it was.
So it was something that Tuck sent me on Instagram. And then I, like I do with everything on Instagram that I think is interesting, I look in the comments and I'm looking and I'm seeing that there are other nurses from like all over the country being like, yeah, I got a rock too.
Oh my God.
I got a rock too.
A fucking rock?
A rock with an assignment attached.
Like, don't give me anything. Not giving them anything would be less insulting.
A kindness. Yeah. Definitely.
It's so insulting.
Yeah.
How much money did you spend on these rocks? Give that to me.
And especially after a year where hospitals are because a lot of our hospitals are for profit, having record profits.
That's such bullshit.
You're giving your nurses rocks.
Like, hey, sorry that you're constantly sick and some of you are dying.
Yeah.
And like your families are being ripped apart because you're working crazy hours and quarantining.
Yeah.
And
now you're divorced. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Here's a rock. So this pandemic has been a wake up call to many, showing them that, hey, I could drop dead and like there would be no consequences. Like my employer wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So this is a fight that we've had before. It's a fight that sadly we have to continue having because there exists this really elitist sentiment about whose work has value. Like, I'm looking at you, Eric Adams, with your dumb ass.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I try not to think about him.
Literally.
But he was talking about some so-called low-skilled workers. Like, shut your fucking mouth.
Saying that low-skilled workers are never going to be in the corner office. He was supposed to be trying to say, like, people that work in office buildings in Midtown should go back to work to support, like, the restaurants and dry cleaners and stuff in Midtown.
Oh, that's what he was trying to say?
Yeah. But
He's
then
so inarticulate.
I know.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. We're all together. We're all in this together. The business people need to go back to work so that they can support all of the lower skilled workers.
Oh, that's trash. Okay. It's still trash. Okay. Oh, he's the worst. Anyways, a wise man once said weeks before his death, whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. He went on, one day our society must come to see this. One day our society will come to respect the sanitation worker if it is to survive. For the person who picks up our garbage in the final analysis is as significant as the physician. For if he does not do his job, diseases are rampant. All labor has dignity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who said that?
MLK.
Oh,
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
So my story is about what led Martin Luther King Jr. to speak this truth with his whole chest. My scandal today is the Memphis Sanitation Strike of 1968.
Amazing.
The event that would get Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated as he was on the eve of bringing together poor workers of all races for economic justice. This collective action in Memphis, it would be the first march of the Poor People's Campaign. Have you ever heard of the
No.
Oh, okay. I think I'm going to do a mini about it.
Awesome.
It would be the first march of this organization, but it would be King's last march.
Okay.
But first, a toast.
Yes.
Let us raise our glass to collective action and rejecting the notion of an individualized working class.
Heck yes.
Because nothing happens on the individual level. Like, one person can inspire others to move collectively, but like systemic change happens when we are united. Cheers.
100%. Cheers. I'll drink to that.
Took a very big gulp.
I heard that. I heard you swallow. Yeah.
So the conditions that led to this strike, it started where all things start. Things regarding Black people. It started with Black sharecroppers fleeing the racial terror and the economic injustice of southern cotton fields. They fled to the city to do hazardous work in order to better their lives.
Sure.
You know, this is like tale as old as time. This happens all throughout history. People move for better conditions, better material conditions.
Yeah.
However, due to the Reconstruction, 100 years post-slavery, not much had really changed. Black people were no longer enslaved, but they were still at the lowest rung of the economic ladder, and they were still making up the foundation of the economy in the South. Sanitation jobs were seen as this like step up from sharecropping cotton, but it was still really, really dangerous work.
Sure,
You could be hurt very, very easily.
Yeah, look at those trucks, like literally like crushing stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So most attempts by Black workers to organize for just decent working conditions, they weren't looking for great. They weren't looking for a cafe. They didn't want Starbucks. Like, they're just like, hey, can we like not get horribly mangled when we're doing our jobs? Like, would that be all right with you?
It was like, no, sorry.
Basically, every attempt.
That's a bridge too far.
Yes. Every attempt that they tried was brutally kind of suppressed.
Of course.
But Memphis, for it being in the South, when they went through integration, they didn't have the violence that other cities like Birmingham and Tulsa and Little Rock had. It was relatively peaceful.
Okay.
Not to say that there was no violence,
Sure,
but the violence didn't make the news. It wasn't like they were calling the National Guard type of things.
Okay.
So Black people were admitted finally to like movie theaters, libraries, lunch counters, and it was okay. However, economically, they were still only allowed to occupy the most menial of jobs for the lowest of wages. So I think it's because the Black people there were in their place. They weren't trying to
Yes, okay. That makes
do
so much sense.
more,
That's
unfortunately.
Such garbage, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So of all the shit jobs to work in Memphis, working for the Department of Public Works was perhaps the worst. So I have a sound clip from a documentary called At the River, I Stand. This documentary is about the strike that year. The voices that you're going to be hearing are from two men. One is a community organizer and the other was a sanitation worker at the time.
This was a job a white man could not have. It was beneath the level of a white man. This is a social caste. This is a job reserved for blacks. It was not a clean job. They had to wear filthy clothes. They had to work in filth. They had to drag garbage cans. I mean, tubs of garbage.
Most of those tubs had holes in them, garbage leaking all over you. When you got home in the evening, you had to stop at the door to pull off your shoes and pull off those little dirty clothes because maggots had fell all on you.
Oh,
yeah.
It's awful.
It's
oh, my God.
bad. So when it came to the Department of Sanitation, it was overwhelmingly black, with only white employees being the supervisors or the drivers. Anything that wasn't physically taxing is what the white workers did. Of course, they made more money. Black workers had much lower wages and were always assigned the most dangerous and the dirtiest tasks. The collectors were required to put in long hours, like really long hours without overtime pay. Minimum wage then was so low that you could work 40 hours and still be eligible for assistance and like food stamps.
Like Walmart, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's a government job.
So in bad weather, black employees who worked outside, they would be sent home without pay, while their white supervisors were allowed to stay on the job. And I guess supervise a whole pile of bootstraps.
Supervise what? Yes, bootstraps. Look at those bootstraps.
Go faster.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was just
literally, what are you supervising? Nobody's picking anything up today.
They were just making that money, that sweet government money. So since there was no overtime for black workers, they were expected to work for as long as it took for them to finish the route. So oftentimes they were working like 60 hours a week for 40 hours of pay.
I was just going to say they could make the routes as long as they wanted if you can't stop until...
Yes.
Oh my God.
Which they did. Aside, it's fucking terrible. This is like, it sounds like a living nightmare. Aside from pay, like the pay wasn't even the worst part.
Yeah.
Sanitation workers just had a really dehumanizing, physically demanding, just dirty ass job.
Yeah.
Memphis now is like a black majority black city, but back then it was 40%.
Okay.
But 60% of the black population was in poverty.
Sure.
So back then, when it came to garbage day, it wasn't like everyone was bringing their garbage can to the curb for collection. These workers would have to go behind people's house, haul this 55-gallon metal tub.
What?
To the truck, empty it, drag it back behind the house.
That's madness.
Yes. And this was a time before garbage liners. And
of course.
oftentimes there would be holes in these like metal things because they're not putting a liner, so it's being eaten away.
So they're rusting out. Yeah.
It's rusting out. It's leaky. It's dirty. And it's fucking heavy, 55 gallons. So to spare some of the workers like arms and I guess like backs, they would like either try to rest it on their heads or on their shoulders.
That's awful.
I know.
Then you've got like garbage juice dripping all over you.
Leaking
in
all
the
over
South?
you. Yes, in the South.
Oh,
so yeah, the
God.
man in the clip, he talked about there was like maggots in his shoes. Like that's why.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I read this one account where a former sanitation worker, he talked about how he and his coworkers, like every time they found like a scrap of soap that someone had discarded, had thrown away, because again, there's no garbage liner, so you can like look down and be like, oh, there's soap in there. They would grab the soap.
Sure.
So just so they'd have something to wash their hands with.
Oh, that's so awful.
Oh, because they didn't have a workroom.
Yeah.
They had nowhere to eat, nowhere to even wash their hands at work.
So if they were going to eat lunch, their hands are filthy.
Covered in garbage juice and maggots.
God,
yeah.
That is
Talk
horrific.
about health and safety. Like, what does that even mean in this job? Like, it's just the sickness that was probably rampant, like at that time, like just the fact that you're bathing in like bacterial water. So there was no paid time off, no grievance process whatsoever, no workman's comp. If you were injured enough to like not be able to work, You're bad. You're fired. You're fired. Bye. We're going to find someone else.
That sucks for you.
So a former sanitation worker named Theo Jones, he started to organize a union. He's just like, this is like inhumane. Like these working conditions, like this is unacceptable. So he was a sanitation worker between 1958 and 1963. In 1963, he organized a wildcat strike where everyone just walked off the job. Not everyone. He and 32 others walked off the job that day.
There was a significant percentage of workers?
I don't think that was a huge percentage of the workers.
Okay.
And I only say that because later on, I think there were like 1,300 of them.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So yeah.
Him and 33 people in total walked off the job that day.
Okay.
And they were all fired.
I was just going to say,
yeah,
with numbers like that, they're just going to be fired.
They're going to be fired, yeah. Most of them were able to get their jobs back, but Jones, he decided that, I'm a labor organizer now. Like, sure. I'm not coming back. Like, I'm going to help these people, these men, like, organize a union because they need one.
Yeah,
they have no representation.
Wow, good for him.
So he eventually, he succeeded that following year in 1964. Their charter got granted. Their number, because they're like every union has like a union number.
Sure.
They were 1733, and they thought like the 33 was the 33 people who were fired.
Oh.
That was kind of like the urban legend. Who knows if was probably by design?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not. But like they felt like it was like a warning,
symbolic of something.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, like better watch your back, do this properly or else.
Yeah, remember these 33.
Huh.
Who knows? I understand why, in researching this story, why they would be paranoid like that. Because there was horrible things going on there. So they have this union, which is all well and good, but the city refused to recognize their union. They did not do this thing. I guess with unions, there's like automatic like a payment of dues.
Okay.
Which was the thing that this union had negotiated. The city just didn't do that with paychecks.
Oh. I see.
Yeah.
So did the union find a way to just do it independently with like amongst themselves?
Yes and no. Collecting was hard. Like that was the reason why it should have been automatic.
Yeah,
but like
absolutely.
that was done purposefully to like destroy their union.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure.
It's trash. So the union, this is like 2 years after the fact, they organized a strike in 1966 because the city just wasn't negotiating with them, acting like they didn't exist. They were fed up, but they failed to draw like really broad support.
Okay.
Because a lot of the workers were still kind of afraid from the last strike where everyone was just fired.
Yeah.
They're just like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like the city is saying that we're not real. Like, I don't feel comfortable making waves like this.
Power is only possible if you have numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, a couple of weeks before this like big strike, two events would push these workers over the edge and they would be like, fuck it. Like I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So the first event was Henry Loeb. He became mayor. He was this conservative, anti-union, very anti-union segregationist who had just been elected mayor in a runoff election between three people.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is
him.
Yeah, he was the worst. His campaign like motto, like his like unifying message was white unity. He said this out loud.
Gross. In the late 60s, dude?
Yeah. White unity. It's like you guys are 60% of the population. You're already the majority. Like, why do you need to say this out loud?
Yeah.
But yeah, he would defeat a less racist incumbent. The incumbent was not like progressive by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he went to a black church once.
Oh my God.
And like that was enough to doom him forever. And he also beat out a black civil rights activist and lawyer who helped desegregate Memphis schools. So,
oh, wow.
I mean, that guy never really had a chance, but he was
Sure.
running just because. This was seen as a huge step back for the black community of Memphis. They were rightfully afraid. And once in office, like Loeb, he essentially just like unzipped his pants and like showed his ass to the black community, being like, I am not representing you. Like,
Y'all can go
fuck y'all.
Yourself. Yeah.
Essentially. Needless to say, conditions for black workers, black city workers got worse that January 1968. He would refuse to take rickety trucks out of service, setting a ball into motion that would change everything. And the second event that would push these workers over the picket line was that there was a tragic accident on February 1st. Ethel Cole and Robert Walker had taken shelter in the back of their garbage truck during a torrential downpour. It was raining really hard. They got into the back of their truck just to get out of the rain. And a short circuit caused the truck to turn on.
Oh, my God.
The compactor, crushing them both to death.
That's horrific.
Yeah, and workers had been raising concerns about these trucks for months.
Yeah.
Because they were old, they should have long been serviced or just taken out of commission. And the city's just like, whatever, it's only black people using it. Like, fuck it.
Jesus, that's horrific.
So both men, they were only in their 30s. They both had really young families. And guess how much the city gave each family?
Oh, my God. $100?
$500.
Okay.
They got no other compensation, no insurance payout. No one from the city attended any of the funerals. The city did nothing to address these death traps masquerading as trucks. Black workers were still forced to use these trucks to do their jobs. Union leaders, they reach out to the city again to officially recognize their union. Like, hey, we need someone who can negotiate on behalf of these workers. Like, a tragic accident has happened. 2 young people are dead. We need to do something.
Fathers with children.
Yeah. And the city's like, fuck off. Loeb is like, no, I'm not doing shit. So the day after, he said no to recognizing the union and like just doing anything about this. On February 11th, this is 10 days after their colleagues were crushed to death, Memphis sanitation workers, they voted to strike.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they should do. You can go ahead and say that our jobs are unimportant all you want, but when there's nobody to pick up your fucking garbage, then you're going to have a different story.
Yeah, so I feel like now is time for a little break-see.
Yeah, I need a minute after that.
Welcome to #History. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah. And if you're a history nerd,
or even a history hater,
this is the podcast for you.
Even if history was your least favorite subject in school, we can guarantee you will like this podcast because we talk about all the things that your history textbooks did not.
Things like how the Bonnie Prince Charles and his Jacobite uprising was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, or how the pharaoh Akhenaten was so disliked by Egyptians that they literally purged his name from nearly all of their records and pretended like he had never existed.
And we do all of this while drinking and rating a custom-made cocktail specific to that week's topic.
So grab a drink, take a seat, and hang out with us each week as we learn all about history's greatest stories of controversy,
conspiracy,
and corruption.
We're back.
We are. And the strike is on.
Yes.
Fucking finally. So for years of having their safety complaints just like fall on deaf ears, they're like, we've had enough. We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Because we could literally die tomorrow. So fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, we could be fired, but also like literally we could die.
Yeah, we could be crushed to death in these
rather
death traps.
My children have fathers.
Yeah. So the next day, fewer than 200 of the 1,300 sanitation employees showed up for work.
Okay.
And only 38 of the 108 garbage trucks moved that day. 214 out of 230 sewage drainage workers also said, nah, I'm not coming to work.
Wow.
They're like, I'm not even delivering garbage. Like, I'm not picking up garbage. But, like, I stand with you guys.
Yeah.
Because, like, fuck this. And that's how you strike. Solidarity.
You have to have numbers or it's not going to count.
So, black pastors, some of whom were also sanitation workers, they played a huge role in the strike, getting it going and just like from an organizational standpoint. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but I do want to talk about just the black church before I jump into the details of the strike, because I think it's important.
Sure.
So the black church has always been a place of refuge and fellowship, and it still is very much the cornerstone of like black communal life.
Sure.
These Memphis churches, they were instrumental in building enthusiasm and momentum for this cause. And once like black church ladies got involved, like it was a wrap.
Essentially what you're saying is once women got involved.
Yeah. Yeah. The movement,
it was a wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, the movement took off
Yeah.
because women.
Yeah.
Memphis's black leaders, they were led by a man named Reverend James Lawson. He was a longtime associate of King. So he and his church, they like created a whole coalition to support these strikers. I took out the name of the organization. Their acronym was COME. Not like the sexual one, but like the other one. I'm like, I don't need to say this. And I just did. Yeah. Tim.
You know what to do.
I'm like, we don't need this detail. They formed an organization and they were great. So they used their commitment to nonviolence and just their operational know-how to kind of educate the community on like how to be in a strike, how to respond when like the police are beating you to death, kind of thing, unfortunately. But like they provided a lot of instruction and education for the community. And it's why the strike took off in the way that it did.
Wow.
So in March, Lawson, he reached out to Dr. King and he asked if he would come to Memphis to lend his support to the struggle. The strike had already been going on for a few weeks at this point when he would come in March. So until Memphis happened, both the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP and Dr. King, they focus mainly on racial equality. However, in the months leading up to his assassination, King, he made some of his most searing pronouncements against white supremacy, imperialism, and the Vietnam War, just like leading up to this. But more than any other time in his life, King, his final focus was on poverty and economic injustice.
Yeah. I mean, they're so closely related.
They are very, and that's what he saw. So in 1968, King was already at work building the Poor People's Campaign to advocate for poor Americans of all races. And I think this is why he, like Fred Hampton and like Brother Malcolm, when they made this leap from just organizing black people to organizing poor working class people, that's when they had to go.
It's a wrap. Goodbye.
Yeah, your days are numbered. Your days breathing are numbered when you make that connection, that class connection. So the goal of the Poor People's Campaign, and I do think I am going to do a mini about it. Hopefully, maybe it's a full episode. I haven't really looked into it too deeply, but the goal was to bring a multiracial coalition to DC. Okay. It was kind of like an Occupy movement. Sure. To demand federal funding for full employment, a UBI, anti-poverty programs, and housing for the poor. Wow. And their encampment was based on the Bonus Army. Do you remember the Bonus Army from the scandal that I did about Smedley D. Butler?
That was Smedley. My guy.
Yes. Episode 31. If you don't know why every high school should be named Smedley D. Butler, you need to hit pause and just listen to the business plot. Instead of being named after Grover Cleveland for some reason. God. So many schools are named. Or McKinley in Ohio. There's so many McKinleys. Oh, I'm sure. Garbage. There's a Grover Cleveland like high school just a few blocks from here. There's a Grover Cleveland Park. Don't make no sense. Boo. So it was modeled off that idea that you just go there and you force them to deal with you, essentially, in DC. So, okay, I'm going to get into the strike. So the strike started on February 11th, and it could have ended on the 22nd if the mayor wasn't such a turd. This mayor is the fucking worst. Loeb is the worst. Terrible. So the strike, it started with 700 people peacefully just sitting in, minding their business. Like, they made their claims known to the city council, and they just sat peacefully. Yeah. And, like, part of the civil rights movement at that time was just for people to dress really nice, to, unfortunately it's that respectability politics. Sure. You put on your Sunday best, you go down and you sit down peacefully. You just make your presence known. So the city council was so moved by the workers' peaceful demands that they said that they were willing to acknowledge their union for cereal this time. Yeah. I mean, that's all they were asking for. It was just accept, acknowledge that we have a union. Us. Yeah. We've been here for 6 years at this point. Just let us be the union that we have been this whole time. They also said that they would support raises. The city council said this. Oh, God. However, Mayor Loeb rejected the city council's vote. Just because This salty bitch said that only he could approve of the union. And I'm like, I don't even know if this is true.
What's the point of us having a city council then?
Yeah, he said only he had the authority to do so.
Because you've decided that you are the one that has the authority?
Yes. And this is white power.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not the law, but he says so. And he's a man. So the following day, Loeb instructed the police to confront these peaceful protesters with tear gas, as is his way. After this, the Memphis black community, they were really galvanized. They're just like, fuck this. This is like, oh, you want to fight like this?
What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. They're like, oh, we're going to do it again. And this is sad that you have to put your body and your lives on the line. But this is how you get national attention. And this was the MO of the civil rights movement. It's like, okay, you want to do this to us? Keep doing it. And then the news will be here.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do?
Yeah. So, you're not going to look like the good guy in this.
Yes. Exactly. So they were committed to using nonviolent civil disobedience to fill Memphis's jails full of just nice churchgoers.
Sure.
And just use that to bring national attention to the plight of these sanitation workers. By the beginning of March, local high school and college students decided that they're also like, fuck these classes. Like, there's a movement happening.
Wow. That's young people.
Young people. So a fourth of them were white.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, I will march every day next to these sanitation workers because this shit's fucked up.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was going on with the garbage at this point? Like, I can't believe...
Oh, it's sitting.
Yeah.
It's sitting. And in fairness, it's only, only for garbage not to be collected. But it's like, it's been almost a month.
That's a long fucking time.
A long time, yeah.
Especially in the South.
I mean, it is the winter.
Oh, okay.
This is February.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
If this was August.
Oh my God.
Oh, it would have been over in 6 days.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but since it was the beginning of February.
I mean, it's still horrific, but.
Yeah, and I think this is why the mayor felt like he could like talk that talk. It's like, whatever. People haven't come from my head yet.
Sure. And I'm sure like really, really rich people, if they wanted, they could pay somebody to come take it away.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
At this point, over 100 people, including several ministers, had been arrested, just for peacefully protesting. Sure. So Dr. King, he arrived on March 18th to address a crowd of about 25,000 people.
Wow.
Which was the largest civil rights demonstration in history up until this point.
Wow.
Yeah. The largest gathering, of the movement. So King, he praised the group, their unity, saying that you are demonstrating that we can stick together. You're demonstrating that we are all tied in a single garment of destiny. And that if one black person suffers, if one black person is down, we all are down. And he spoke those words that I said at the beginning about how all work has dignity, which it does, especially if it's something so essential as all work has dignity, period.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're removing garbage, something that's so necessary to just the functioning of a society, obviously this work has dignity. So King, he encouraged people outside of sanitation to lend their support to these striking workers. He was just saying, like, whatever job you have, you're not doing it tomorrow. We're all going on strike tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing. He called for a citywide work stoppage. Anyone down with the cause, like, you're not working tomorrow, essentially. So he pledged that he was going to return that Friday, March 22nd, to lead the march through the city. He was going to lead, like, a silent march of everyone who, wasn't working that day through the city to make their demands heard. So King, he left Memphis that following day, but he left some high-level staffers behind to organize this protest and this work stoppage. When the day arrived, there was a really big snowstorm, and it had to be postponed till the 28th. So he arrives on the 28th. He gets there kind of late, and he found a really big crowd, and they were kind of like rowdy.
Okay.
A lot of students had taken off, and it just felt a little different. Despite this, Lawson and King, they decided that they were going to start the march, even though they're like, this feels different. This doesn't feel like a whole bunch of... It was just a big crowd. Sure. There were a lot of churchgoers, but it just felt tense.
Yeah.
So they start leading this march, but quickly they had to call it off because violence started.
Okay.
The protest had been infiltrated by an outside group. that became violent. It started breaking windows, started looting. But this is kind of classic, like Cointelpro.
Sure.
thing.
I was just going to say, were they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what Cointelpro is, it's something that I've mentioned before. It's so big.
Yeah.
It started in the 50s. It started as this like anti-communist sort of surveillance program by the FBI, but then it morphed into something different when, Black people started pushing for civil rights.
Yeah.
It was, it's just a series of covert, illegal spy shit that the FBI did at this time to maintain white supremacy.
So the people that were doing this were not part of the actual group. They were plants, essentially.
Yeah. The mission of Cointelpro was to surveil, infiltrate, and just disrupt social movements, anything pushing for change or equality. Mm-hmm. Trash. I do want to do a scandal about this, but it's every time I look into it, it's just so devious. So devious.
Yeah.
Even for the FBI, like the fact that they just killed all of our leaders and blamed them on others, it's hard for me to look at.
Yeah.
But one day, perhaps, I will be able to do a scandal about this. Or if you would like to do a scandal, it is on the table if you can stomach it.
It's on my plate. I'm just pushing it around.
Yes. Totally.
Like peas.
Yes. So in the chaos of this like increasingly violent moment, like King is whisked away to like a nearby hotel for safety, because at this point he's being surveilled and he's just like, what the fuck is happening? This is scary. So Lawson, he told the rest of the peaceful protesters to turn around and go back to their church and just like wait there for instruction. So in the chaos that followed, an unarmed 16-year-old teen would be killed by the police.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
As they do. The police then followed these marchers who were just going back to their church, went inside, like forced the doors open, threw tear gas down, and started like clubbing people on the ground who were just...
They're just sitting in their church?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. A place of refuge, a place of sanctuary. They go in there with tear gas to just pull them out, just because, to show them what's what. Protecting and serving, nothing to see here. Loeb then, it's like not to be outdone. He just calls for martial law. He calls in the National Guard. All the cops come in. The following day, over 200 striking workers, they just continued on their march. They're just like, if you're going to do this to us, you're just going to do this to us. But like, we're still marching.
Yeah.
Fuck y'all. And they started carrying sandwich boards that read, I am a man. I don't know if you've seen these. It became like the rallying cry of the movement. I am a man. Because they just wanted dignity. They just wanted to have a job that was safe. They're doing an important job. They're not asking for much.
No.
At all. So King, he, of course, was blamed for this. He had to condemn the violence, which he did, because the movement that he was leading was a non-violent one. These people were outsiders. But of course, back then, everything was tied to him. They're just like, oh, look what he did again. Like, when he died, I don't know if a lot of people know that, like, the MLK that we, like, Disneyfy now
oh my God,
was hated.
Sure.
He was like BLM.
Yeah.
Like, people are just like, oh, he's pushing too fast, too soon. Like, he's radical. He's a communist. This, that. Like, they didn't love him at all. They hated him. He was like public enemy number one. Like, he was being surveilled by all the organizations. Like, he was not the image that we have of him today at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's been over 50 years.
54 years, since then.
Of whitewashing and pretending that he was just like...
That we loved him.
Yeah.
That's why we have this day.
Yeah.
We love him so much. No, you despised him. He condemned the violence, and he considered not returning to Memphis just because, like, it was such a bad look at the time. There was just so much bad press. Mm-hmm. But he decided that if this nonviolent struggle for economic justice was to succeed, it would be necessary to follow through in Memphis. Yeah. Like, this was the first march of his Poor People's campaign. He's like, if I can't do it here, then what hope do we have for DC?
Yeah, you can't just walk away, because if the powers that be see that all it takes for you to walk away from your movement is a few rowdy plants, they'll just keep doing it.
Yeah. So on April 3rd, King returned to Memphis, and he delivered his, like, iconic I've been to the mountaintop speech. Mm-hmm. In it, he foreshadowed his death. He said, I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And he was assassinated the next day.
Jesus.
So Reverend Lawson, he took to the airwaves in the aftermath, calling for calm in Memphis. He's like, I know you guys are going through it right now. Essentially, like, we can't be who they want us to be.
Sure.
Because they don't even need any sort of provocation.
I mean, literally, you could be sitting in a church.
Yes, you can be sitting in a church minding your business, just seeking refuge, and they will get you.
Yeah.
But Loeb, he did what he did best. He called in the National Guard. He called in the state police. And black and white ministers, they pleaded with him. They're like, don't do this.
Yeah.
Don't do this. You've already done too much. Don't do this.
There's no reason to be doing this. Literally, there's no reason for this.
But the mayor, he held firm. He's like, fuck this union, fuck all black people ever. Like, I don't care, essentially. Yeah. President Johnson even sent his Undersecretary of Labor, a man named James Reynolds, to talk to him.
To be like, dude, there's no reason for this.
And Loeb was like, get the fuck out of my city. Get out of here.
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, exactly. So on April 8th, it's estimated that 42,000 people, led by Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. King, she marched with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and union leaders silently throughout the city on that day and in honor of Dr. King. And they demanded that Loeb just like, please give in to these union demands. All they want is to be treated like humans and to have basic things. Can you pay us a living wage?
They just want to be paid and not be crushed by their fucking jobs.
Can we be paid like the white staff and not be killed on the job? That's all they wanted. It was still a no. He's like, no, I'm not doing shit. Get the fuck out of my face. Negotiators finally reached a deal on April 16th. The deal brought the strike to an end. People went back to work. However, several months later, the city still hadn't recognized this fucking union.
Even after making a deal with said union.
Yes. Still just like, I'm going to do what I want. So this union had to threaten another strike for the city to finally follow through.
Well, yeah, it's getting warmer.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, it was the summertime. It was
April. It's warmer, not hot, but
not
warmer.
hot, but yeah, it's becoming a problem.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the end. They finally got recognition by the union. It's sad that it had to take all of this and
seriously
fucking killed Dr. King coming there. But the whole message that all work has dignity, I think, really resonates today. Like, that's why I chose this story of all of the union stories I could do. This feels like it could happen today, not today, but I think you were telling me about there was some storm and like people were locked in some like processing plant. Was that you? Maybe it was someone else.
Oh, yeah, the tornado.
Yeah.
And the tornadoes in the South, and it was an Amazon warehouse. And like,
it was Amazon?
Well, there were two things. There was a candle factory that basically, locked people in the factory and said, keep working. And
it's like this building could be ripped off.
People were killed. People were like texting their spouses like, oh, I'm going to come home.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then we're like, oh, actually, they won't let us leave. So I'm not coming home. I'll see you later. And then they died. These were huge tornadoes that were spawned by climate change.
Yeah.
So there was also an Amazon warehouse where a bunch of people were killed. And Amazon takes people's phones away so that they're not on their phone on the job. So they didn't even know the tornadoes were coming.
No.
Because they never got an alert because they didn't have their phones. And Amazon didn't tell them. And then Jeff Bezos sends out like a message like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about our team member's death.
They take their phones?
I mean, they're not allowed to go to the bathroom. Of course, they're not allowed to be on their phones.
That's so fucked up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a need for us to talk about the history of labor because what the fuck is happening now? So I'm just going to end by saying that 54 years after the death of MLK sparked this first big, in a lot of circles, this is seen as like the first big movement towards environmental racism and just environmental justice.
Yeah.
But I think exploited workers everywhere are pushing for better wages and like union rights. And I know Amazon has had many fights over unions recently, rightfully.
Yes. So,
yeah, from the fast food walkouts to early retirements to the Great Resignation to Striketober to Strikesgiving. I've heard that, Strikesgiving. Like 2021 was a very pivotal year for labor, for the movement. And I think there's still just so much work to do.
Yeah.
Clearly.
No, absolutely.
Good God, so much work to do.
If like Amazon and Walmart got on board with unions,
it would
game over. Like we'd be in a new progressive era.
Such a different place.
Yeah. That was an incredible story.
Was it?
I knew bits and bobs of it.
Okay.
Obviously,
I
because
don't know why. I thought it was going to be so boring. I'm like, people strike all the time.
Not in any way whatsoever. No, and obviously because MLK was involved, I'm sure some people have heard pieces of that, but I didn't know the whole story at all. It absolutely is so poignant today, especially we're recording this kind of at the height of the Omicron surge.
Yeah, we are actually recording this the day before MLK.
Hopefully by the time this comes out, Omicron will sort of be on the downswing.
I think it will be.
But currently there's all these people are complaining about like, oh, my grocery store shelves aren't being stocked. My garbage isn't being picked up. You know, my students' teachers aren't at work. I'm like, y'all said bring it on. Y'all said, oh, it's going to be fine. It's mild.
Yeah.
Get back to work.
5 days.
Bring it on.
5 days. Come back.
And look what happens. These people are called essential workers.
It's almost like cause and effect.
I know.
What?
They're called essential workers because they are essential. People who are getting sick because they're being forced to go to work every day.
Yes.
In the middle of the worst surge yet.
By far.
Like
it's not even close.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the numbers are, the charts alone are just like
sobering.
What?
The fact that like the first one that everybody was freaking out about is like a blip compared to what it looks like today.
Yeah.
I mean, again, by the time this comes out, hopefully it'll be in the past or on the way to being in the past.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think it will. I have to think it will be.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, seriously, thank you for telling that.
It's so important. And it's the only way change happens.
Yeah.
We have all these things that we love and we take them for granted. And it's like they only happen because of collective action.
Mm-hmm. But it's really encouraging to see that collective action and unions are sort of making a comeback in a real way. My mother used to be a big part of her union at the post office, but she ended up leaving the union because they didn't have any power and they wouldn't fight for her when she needed something. Oh. She's like, what's the point if you... But it's
by design.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they don't have any power, but it's because of the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
Their power has been stripped from them by design.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people don't want to pay union dues if they're not actually going to do anything for you. But now, finally, hopefully, we're going to see a new era. And the year of the essential worker, what was it called again?
The year of the worker.
The year of the worker.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
We can't keep doing this.
Yeah. My drink is... She's gone. So I
Show off.
Well, you were flapping your gums.
It's true.
Your jaw gums. America's history is juicy. We just add vodka and synergy.
Facts.
Yeah.
We've been brainwashed by Big Cranberry.
Yes. Totally. Oh, thank you so much for listening to Beyond Reproach. This has been Tux Lursel.
Stephanie Domingo. I'm like, what is he waiting for?
Just your name.
Why does he look at me like that as I'm stirring my cocktail? Leave me alone. Stephanie Domingo.
Thank you to Tim Clough, our editor, sound engineer, and podfather. You are essential.
Oh my God. I almost aspirated that. That could have been really painful. You're essential. It's true. But how dare you?
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Beyond Reproach is proudly recorded in Bushwick, Brooklyn, on land belonging to the Lenape Nation. Please note we are not historians. We are just a couple of drunks who never shut up and love history. Full list of all source information can be found in the show notes on our website. Please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Written reviews are especially important. If you like us, please do one of two things. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or send this episode to a friend, family member, or someone who you think would be into it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram because we post our cocktail recipes the Thursday before each full episode. Please drink along with us if you are not driving. We also have a shop on beyondreproachpod.com. Get your merch, brand yourselves. We have exclusive content on Patreon where you can directly support the production of our show.